Oh, that was great. We are on our way. We're going to talk a little bit about being on our way today. So, this month, we've been exploring the theme of love, right, in the context of our annual theme, Rising Higher and Growing Deeper. And as you know, we were kind of following along with our CSL themes as part of our broader CSL community. And I will admit, the official title for this week's talk was The Turbulence of Love. And I tweaked it because I always tweak the titles. And so I am calling it The Growing Pains of Being Love. And we will talk a little bit about what those growing pains might look like. But I think part of why I wanted to change the title is that while, of course, we all experience turbulence in life, and that's just kind of the nature of life, all of the unexpected things, I don't think, for me anyway, that turbulence is what I want to focus on. I want to focus on the growth part, and that's where the growing pains come in. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So throughout this month, we've been talking about the idea of love, or I should say about love, but not as an idea or as a state to attain, but rather love as actions, as choices, as behaviors, as ways of being, right? And embracing love and exploring love is part of how we grow spiritually, whether in meditation with ourselves or reflection with ourselves, and whether in community. So you've heard Reverend Suzette and Reverend Jerry talk this month about different aspects of love, love as self-compassion, love as loving kindness, and we're going to talk about some other dimensions of love in the sense of love as being. So love as who we are and how we express ourselves in the world. So what does this mean, talking about love as being? To me, it means not only thinking about love as something that we want to experience or something that we want to receive, but embodying love. How do we embody love in all our thoughts and all our actions and choices? In our teaching, we have in our philosophy, we have a fundamental teaching. You know, I always like to refer to our belief statement. And we say, we believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. So what does this mean in relation to this idea of love as being? It means that we think of God as all that is good. God is love, God is peace, beauty, and joy. And if those are all the things that God is, then so must we be. We are already love and joy and peace and power. But it's part of our human experience to not remember that when we are born. And it is our lifelong spiritual journey to reconnect with that sense of what we truly are. Not simply love as something that's outside. In our teaching, God is not away from us, right? God is not far away. God is already within us. It is the very source of our being. We are God at the atomic level, for lack of a better way to put it. Love is the energy that engenders the world, and we are a vibration and expression of that. So love isn't something out there. It's something in here that we connect with and that we embody moving forward in many different ways, right? So to do this, though, or to have this awareness, requires letting go of many of our ideas of what love should look like. Because in our culture, we get a lot of ideas about what love should look like, right? We have romantic ideas, we have complicated ideas of expectations. Well, if you loved me, you would do this, right? If you loved me, you would behave this way, right? If you loved me, you'd send me cards. If you loved me, you'd buy me flowers. If you loved me, you would support me, right? I mean, we can think of any number of things that if statement, right? If you loved me, that's what that would look like. And most of the time, when we're using that way of thinking, it's more about what it should show up as for us, not what we're doing, right? But how it's going to be coming to us. But if we can allow ourselves to let go of some of those ideas, to think about things in new ways, love may show up for us in new ways. And part of it is modeling, right? If we want love to show up for us in different ways, we have to embody that ourselves. What we put out into the universe is what returns to us, right? And this is part of what brings me back to the way I changed the title of the talk. So when my husband and I got married some years ago, you know, periodically as we were beginning our life together, we would bump heads about one thing or another. And my husband told me one day, well, you know, those are our growing together pains. And I really loved that because it was a really good metaphor to me, right? We think about growth, right? And we all recognize, not everybody experiences this, but lots of us as young people had a physical experience of growing pains. But we also use that as a metaphor, you know, more broadly to talk about when we are learning something, when we are growing, we get into a sense of discomfort, right? It is uncomfortable to be in an unfamiliar space or thinking about things in new ways. So hence growing together pains and growing pains on being love. So in the same way that, you know, my husband and I started our new life together, part of the invitation of this month and today is to start thinking anew, thinking in new ways. And I appreciated the song that trio all sang. It's wonderful how the divine always arranges just the right music, because that song was about starting over. Starting over when you found that the way that you think isn't working for you, and thinking about how you can be growing, making choices that affirm that growth. So I'm going to share something, a statement or some thoughts by Thich Nhat Hanh, a Buddhist teacher, who some of you may be familiar with. He says, beginning anew is not easy. We have to transform our hearts and our minds in very practical ways. Beginning anew is not to ask for forgiveness. It's to change your mind and heart, to transform the ignorance that brought about wrong actions of body, speech, and mind, and help you cultivate your mind of love. All wrongdoings arise in the mind. It is through the mind that wrongdoings can disappear. Beginning anew is an opportunity for us to recall some regret from earlier and undo it. Loving speech is crucial. We want to heal the community. We speak frankly, but we do not want to be destructive. Listening meditation is an important part of the practice. When we sit among a circle of friends, like we're all doing right now, right, who are all practicing deep listening, our speech becomes more beautiful and more constructive. We don't blame or argue. Compassionate listening is crucial. We listen with the willingness to relieve the suffering of the other person, not to judge or argue with them. We listen with all of our attention. Even if we hear something that is not true, we continue to listen deeply so the other person can express their pain and release the tension within themselves. I know that was a long passage. But what I want you to focus on in that is this idea of, one, we can begin anew at any moment, right? And two, the idea of being fully present for others, to allow them to be fully present with us, right? As Thich Nhat Hanh said in that passage, all wrongdoings arise in the mind, and it is through the mind that they can disappear, which is totally consistent with our teaching of science of mind, isn't it? We affirm in our teaching that what we think creates what we experience. It is a fundamental element of that process where the divine moves through itself as law to create our experience through our thought, right? The belief and thinking of our minds creates the container of our experience of life. I recently learned something that is really, I'm still reflecting and pondering, and it's the etymology of the word believe, which is to love, be love. So the word belief originally came from the idea of be love. Which really made me think about, wow, okay, what do I believe? And can I say that I love that, or that I really am that fundamentally committed? It's not belief simply as an intellectual construct, right? It's belief as something that you are completely engaged by, that you love. And I think that's something to explore. So I just wanted to share that because it was a very interesting and surprising idea that I was not aware of. So when we encounter situations and experiences that don't align with what we desire, we have an opportunity to return to our mindset, to return to our thoughts and our beliefs, and to consider how we want to change that, since we know that the mind co-creates with the law, and the law does not edit the mind, right? We are the driver of that process, right? So we become responsible for discerning what we want to give the law to work with. Oh man, that is really annoying. I want somebody else to be responsible. I don't want to have to be responsible. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling. I certainly do from time to time. So Ernest Holmes tells us, the mood of the infinite mind is one of love. The action and intelligence takes place in loving ways. What God hath wrought has been by means of love. And so he's identifying that fundamental thing that we're talking about today. It's all love. That's where it starts. And the action is by means of love. So how do we start anew to not re-engage ourselves, but maybe more fully engage ourselves with the love that we already are? So we already know some of these tools because we use them here all the time, right? Spiritual mind treatment, affirmation, meditation, journaling, whatever means that we find most useful and meaningful to put into our consciousness a new way, a new opportunity, a new way of thinking about love, and then repeating it, right? Repeating it over and over, because that's also part of our humanness. It would be awesome if we could just go like that, and sometimes we are able to do that. But most of the time, we have to practice, just like our musicians do, to be able to share their wonderful music with us. So do we need to practice when we want to experience something greater. One of Albert Einstein's most famous quotes is, "You cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it." Hence our human challenge. We have to do something to change our mind. And it's really easy to, I don't know that I would call it laziness per se. Again, it's this idea of comfort versus discomfort. To change the mind requires us to experience some discomfort. That is simply the nature of it. But perhaps rather than thinking about it as discomfort, because in our culture anyway, we equate comfort is good, discomfort is bad, right? And we seek to avoid discomfort at all times. And if we can't avoid it, medicate it. Because, right? We do not want to experience it. And yet, what we know is that some degree of discomfort is required for growth. And so if we can choose to think about discomfort not as something bad, but something necessary, and to focus on the aspects of our discomfort that can inform us in experiencing something greater, right? Something yet more wonderful than we have had a chance to experience. As the song that they shared said, something that we're on the way up, that discomfort is going to help us experience that on the way up part. So that's the opportunity in beginning anew, right? Considering what aspects of your mindset are influencing the experience that you're having, your current relationships, your feelings, how things are going for you, and are there patterns that might be perpetuating negativity or doubt in your experience. Ask yourself if that current mindset is likely to create a new and more fulfilling experience. Are there things that need to be shifted? Whether it's letting go of a limiting belief or embracing vulnerability, right? Or cultivating self-compassion. How many people here have trouble allowing themselves to feel self-compassion? Yeah, a lot of us, right? And that's a really important part of this project of beginning anew. is saying thank you and your services are no longer needed to the inner critic, right? And that doesn't mean that we don't want to be reflective and thoughtful about what we're doing or how we can do things better, but that inner critic is not helping us do things better as much as it sounds like it is supposed to be doing that. Listen and create the space where they can figure out what it is that they need to do, right? That's been part of my learning curve and my growth edge, is to shut up. And let me tell you, obviously, as someone who went into ministry, I like to talk. So that's a thing to think about, right? So all of the things that require practice. I want to tell you about a story that some of you may already know because it involves people here in San Diego. On a tragic night in 1995, Azim Khamisa's life forever changed when his 20-year-old son Tariq was murdered while delivering a pizza. Are some of you familiar with the story? Yeah, that's something. If you were living here in San Diego back then, you might have heard about this. And the shooter was a boy named Tony Hicks. He was only 14 years old, already very deeply involved in gang life. And while, of course, this loss completely devastated Khamisa, his spiritual path led him to a profound realization that there were victims on both sides of the gun. And instead of letting anger and grief consume him, he chose a radical act of love. He reached out to Hicks's grandfather, a man named Plus Felix, and together they founded the Tariq Khamisa Foundation to help prevent youth violence. And over time, he spent thousands of hours in mediation and prayer to prepare himself, or meditation and prayer, to prepare himself for the moment when he would meet the boy who killed his son. And he says that that meeting changed everything for him, that he saw not a monster, but a remorseful and transformed young man. And he offered Hicks a second chance, a job at the foundation once he was released from prison. And that offer gave Hicks a promise and a potential future and a path to redemption. And after his release, 24 years later, right, he joined the foundation and began speaking with Khamisa to at-risk youth, turning his guilt into service. And he now considers Khamisa like a father and Tariq's sister like his own sister. And though Hicks says he still works daily, right, to forgive himself, that the love and forgiveness extended to him, right, have made healing possible for everybody involved. Khamisa says that forgiving Hicks allowed him to find joy again in life. And I think, of course, this story is a testament to the power of love and the choice to embody love, in this case, even under such extreme circumstances. I am not arguing that everybody should be able to do this. This is a remarkable act. But I share it because I think that it really is an amazing testament to the choice that a person can make. You know, Khamisa didn't just decide this overnight, right? It took many, 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 many hours of prayer, of meditation, of reflection, to be able to make this choice. But what an amazing, life-affirming choice it was. Life-affirming and love-affirming. So, you know, it's hard to change your mind and your heart. You know, as we've been talking about, it is uncomfortable. It can involve growing pains, right? And yet, we either have the choice to continue living as we're living, experiencing difficulties and challenges, or we have the choice to embrace the discomfort, invite growth, choose to experience something new, something greater. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote, agape, which is the kind of love we're talking about, not just, it's sort of the big love, right? The divine love. Agape is an overflowing love, a spontaneous love, which seeks nothing in return. It is the love of God operating in the human heart. When you rise to love on this level, you love all men, not because you like them, not because their ways appeal to you, not because they are worthful to you, but you love all men because God loves them. And we would say, not a God out there, but the God that is already within here, right? If we allow that to happen. So today's invitation is to make a commitment to changing your mind and heart today to embody love more deeply and more fully. It can only, making such a choice can only bring you a greater experience of life and a greater experience of love. Have any of you heard of this idea of the kindness chain? No? I think you'll be familiar with the concept, if not that word. So here's an example of a kindness chain. Young single father is walking down the street, happens to notice a piece of crumpled paper on the floor, on the ground. Picks it up and it says, everything's going to be okay. You got this. He's kind of surprised, doesn't like, oh, that's weird, like where did it come from? But he's been feeling a little stressed, so hey, it's kind of like a nice little boost. And he goes home and he sees his son, 9 or 10, who's working on his homework, having a really hard time with his math. And so he thinks, and he says to his son, you're okay, buddy. You got this. I'll help you. And the son smiles and his tears evaporate. The next day, the guy's at work, walking down the hall, looks in the break room, and he sees a colleague, and she looks really dejected. And so he thinks, he just goes in and says, hey, I think you did a really good job on that thing last week. And she looks at him and she said, wow, I was really having a hard moment, but you really lifted my spirits. Thank you. The next week, that same young woman sees another colleague who is struggling. And so she says, hey, let me give you a hand with that. We'll get it done in just a few minutes. The colleague says, oh, wow, thank you. The son, who he'd helped with his math, goes to school and sees a fellow student trip and drop his backpack and all his books. So he stops to help him pick it up. That's the chain. You can all imagine that. For every act that you do that is helpful to another person, you create the energy that can move forward in their helping another person and they're helping another person. And if you think about this exponentially, right? This is where the idea, it's sort of like that idea of ripples in the pond too, right? You throw a stone and it creates ripples. This is the same kind of idea, that when we choose to engage and embody, let me rephrase that. When we choose to embody love and engage others in that, we create a chain reaction. We may not know it, we may not see it, but it is happening nonetheless. And if you thought about doing something for someone once a day even, right? So you did that with 7 people this week, and they did that with 7 people the next week, and they did that with 7 people the next week, right? It becomes exponential. It becomes not only transformative for your own life, but transformative in your community. And you are part of that. You're already doing it. The issue is, do you want to do more? And you can, if that's something that you choose. So our spiritual practice invitation for this week is to create your own kindness chain, or to continue to add to it, right? So focus on kindness or opportunities for acts of kindness, which is to say, activate your sense of oneness with the divine and activate your sense of oneness with others, right? Embody love as it makes sense for you in your world. So take a few moments at the end of each day just to reflect on how have you connected with others? Was there something that you were able to do? How did it feel when you did it? Was there an opportunity you missed? Maybe you could take advantage of that another time. Just as I'm not talking about spending an hour journaling, just a few minutes to reflect on that, to bring it into your conscious awareness of something to pay attention to during the day, right? We're all super busy. We're not ever always going to remember it all the time, but we can remember from time to time. I came across this wonderful quote by Mother Teresa. She says, I'm a little pencil in the handwriting of God who is sending a love letter to the world. I love this idea. I stand before you, and my choice is to be a little pencil in the handwriting of God. And I invite you all to be little pencils. And it sounds funny, right, when we say it, and yet how powerful it is to be part of writing that love letter to the world, right? We all have the power to be writing our letters individually and writing our letters together as we do here at Eckholm as a spiritual community. So love itself is calling for change in our minds and our hearts. The same thought patterns that brought you to this place won't take you any farther until you allow them to grow, until you allow yourself to experience some divine discomfort, but with the knowledge that that is part of your growing greater, growing together, growing more fully you pains, right? So take a moment this morning and moving forward to embrace this idea of starting anew. What new affirmation, spiritual mind treatment, prayer, or mantra can you adopt to really commemorate and identify this fresh start for yourself, right? Sometimes when we experience challenges in love, it's easy to feel as though love has vanished or come to an end. But sometimes it just needs an upgrade. Has anybody here ever felt like love needed an upgrade in their life? Yeah, right? So let's make that choice for the upgrade. Instead of allowing these challenges to serve as proof that something is wrong, let's just let it be a call to express a new expression that we have yet to discover. And the guidance that we seek is just in listening in as deeply a way as we can in the moment to each other. So I want to join you. We'll join you, and I'd like to join me in an affirmation together. Okay? So stand up and speak it with me. So we're going to do it our 3 ways, right? Whisper, stated, celebrated. All right, so God's love is my love, and my love transforms the world. God's love is my love, and my love transforms the world. God's love is my love, and my love transforms the world. Thank you. Namaste.